He pulled her braid in the middle of the hallway. 10 seconds later, he was on the floor begging her to let go. There are some days that start quiet and stay that way. This wasn't one of those days. It was only her third morning at Millstone Academy, and already, Jaslyn Rowe felt the weight of eyes. The school was bigger than her last one, more polished. The kind of place where the air always smelled faintly like floor wax and cafeteria hash browns. She adjusted her backpack strap and kept her head down, weaving through the crowd like she wasn't even there. Navy blazer, plaid skirt, the stiff uniform fabric scratching at her arms and waist. She hated uniforms. Her earbuds were in, but no music played. It was just a trick, a way to avoid conversation without having to explain herself. She'd used that one before, too many times. This was Bloomington, Indiana, a long way from where she'd come from, a long way from people who understood her. As she moved past clusters of students laughing and bumping lockers shut, her name hadn't even made it around yet. She was still just that girl who transferred, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. At first glance, Jaslyn was forgettable. Brown skin, hair in long clean braids, no makeup, no jewelry. She walked like she wanted to disappear. Shoulders tucked in, eyes scanning the floor tiles like she was counting them. But under all that, there was something pulled tight. The first person who noticed it was Tiffany Moran, a junior with too much eyeliner and a reputation for talking behind people's backs loud enough to be heard. "Who's the girl dressed like a librarian?" she whispered to her friend, but just loud enough for Jaslyn to hear. Jaslyn didn't react, not even a flinch. She kept walking, her locker code already memorized, her schedule folded neatly in her pocket like she was trying to prove she was ready for all of this. And honestly, she was ready. What she wasn't ready for was Brent Halbrook. He noticed her near the east stairwell, just after second period. Tall, white, and cocky in the way only a sophomore with a senior brother and no real consequences could be. He wasn't the worst person at Millstone, just the loudest. "Yo, new girl!" Brent called across the hallway, his voice bouncing off the lockers. Jaslyn paused. Not because of him, she just didn't want to walk straight into a group of kids coming the other way. But he took it as an invitation. He swaggered up with that smirk he always wore when he thought he was funny. "You mute or something? I'm Brent. You got a name or you just vibe like that all day?" Jaslyn blinked once. "I'm good," and walked past him. "Yo, what?" He laughed, turning to his friends. "She's good, y'all." They snickered. Not loud, but enough. Jaslyn kept walking, back straight, face blank, but her fists were curled just slightly. No one else seemed to notice, but someone always does. And that's when things started to build, but not enough to explode, yet. It wasn't just a one-time thing. Brent didn't let it go. By the next day, he was waiting for her. Not in a creepy way, at least not yet. More like someone circling something new, poking it to see if it bites. Jaslyn knew the type, loud in groups, quieter when alone, always needing someone to be beneath them to feel tall. He posted up at the hallway intersection near the vending machines, where the juniors and sophomores usually hung out between classes. He saw her coming and leaned against the wall like he'd been standing there all morning. "New girl," he called out again. She didn't answer. "You always this cold or just saving your words for a rainy day?" His friends laughed. Jaslyn didn't. She turned the corner, eyes locked on her locker like it was the only thing that mattered. But Brent followed, walking beside her now. Too close. "You know, most girls say thank you when I talk to them," he said, voice low and smug. "Just saying." Jaslyn kept moving, quiet, but something in her chest started twisting. It wasn't fear, it was the pressure of knowing it was happening again. Different hallway, different school, same game, same rules. She reached her locker and started to open it. He didn't stop. "You on scholarship or something? Just wondering, with the way you keep wearing that same jacket like it's a personality." She finally turned her head. Her voice was flat. "You done?" Brent smiled like he'd won something. "Oh, she does talk." And then he walked off, proud of himself, slapping hands with a couple of guys like he'd just pulled off a successful prank. Jaslyn exhaled slowly, turning back to her locker, but she could feel them watching. The eyes. Not all were laughing. Some were just waiting. At lunch, she sat by herself near the end of the table closest to the windows, not because she had to, but because being alone was better than performing for people. She chewed slowly, methodically, a sandwich she made at home, some chips, apple slices. Then came the footsteps. Mind if I sit? The voice was soft, almost nervous. A girl about her age with round glasses and a tangled ponytail. Jaslyn shrugged. Do what you want. The girl sat down anyway. I'm Mira Patel, she said. You're Jaslyn, right? Jaslyn didn't answer. I just wanted to say, Mira continued, Brent's like that with everyone. He's not that bad, though, just stupid, you know? Jaslyn looked her dead in the eye. He pulled this with other girls? Mira hesitated. Well, not like that. Just teasing, mostly. He talks a lot. Doesn't really mean it. So, no. Mira blinked, caught. I guess not. Then don't tell me he's harmless. The silence that followed wasn't mean. It was honest. Jaslyn didn't look mad. She looked tired. Mira picked at her sandwich, unsure whether she should stay. But then Jaslyn did something unexpected. She spoke again. Thanks, though, for saying something. Mira smiled faintly. Yeah, no problem. But that brief quiet didn't last. The next day, Brent stepped it up. This time, right after second period, in a narrow stretch of hallway between the science wing and the gym. No cameras, fewer teachers, more space to act bold. Jaslyn turned the corner and there he was, arms folded, leaning on the wall like he was posing for a magazine no one wanted to read. Hey, I'm talking to you. She didn't stop. You always act like you're too good for this school, but I bet your house smells like boiled hot dogs. Someone nearby snorted. A couple others froze. Jaslyn kept walking. Then he stepped in front of her. Yo, you got a hearing problem or just stuck up? She looked up at him. Just once. Then sidestepped him again. He moved with her. Why don't you smile or something? Not like you got braces to hide. He was louder now. The hallway wasn't crowded, but it wasn't empty either. People were watching again. Not stepping in, just watching. Brent reached out and flicked one of her braids. What is this even made of? And that was the last second things stayed normal. After that, it shifted fast. Brent laughed like he hadn't just done something out of pocket. Like flicking her braid was just some dumb joke between friends. But they weren't friends. And Jaslyn wasn't laughing. She reached up and slowly pulled her earbuds from her ears, winding the cord around her fingers with quiet precision. The hallway buzzed low with whispers, but no one said a word directly to her. Brent looked around, smirking for his audience. Dang, it's a weave? Thought so. He reached for her braid again. He didn't get the chance. Jaslyn grabbed his wrist midair, firm, calm, not aggressive, not wild, just controlled. Brent blinked. He tried to pull back, couldn't. The smirk fell off his face. What are you doing? He said, his voice cracking slightly. Jaslyn tilted her head just a little. You like touching things that don't belong to you? Brent looked over his shoulder. His friends were watching. So were a few other students who'd slowed down just enough to stay close but not involved. Yo, relax, he muttered, trying to laugh it off. I was just... She cut him off. You think I'm playing with you? And before he could even answer, she moved. One step back, a pivot. She swept his leg from under him with clean precision, and Brent hit the hallway floor flat on his back. The thud echoed. He gasped. Not from pain, just shock. His eyes wide, his chest heaving, like he couldn't quite understand how he'd ended up staring at the ceiling. Then, her knee pinned his shoulder lightly, not to hurt him, just to remind him. Her hand twisted his wrist just enough to make him freeze. It was quiet now, like pin drop quiet. Jaslyn leaned down a little, her voice low but sharp. I don't like repeating myself. You touch me again. I promise it won't end like this. Brent didn't say anything. His face was red, humiliated. One of his friends took a step forward, but immediately stopped when Jaslyn looked up. She stood slowly. No drama, no flourish, just done. Brent scrambled up like the floor was on fire, his back hitting the lockers behind him. I wasn't even serious, he stammered. You trippin'. Jaslyn picked up her backpack and slung it over one shoulder like she hadn't just flipped a guy twice her size. Yeah, she said. I know. And she walked away. Two teachers appeared around the corner just seconds later. One of them, Mr. Devereaux, looked confused as he took in the faces, the awkward silence. "What happened here?" he asked. Brent opened his mouth, but nothing came out. One girl in the back shook her head slowly and mumbled, "He got handled." Jaslyn didn't stop walking, didn't look back. Her earbuds were back in, still silent, but it gave her something to focus on. She felt eyes on her again, but this time, they weren't mocking. They were something else. Curious, careful, maybe even impressed. But it didn't matter. She didn't do it for them. She did it for herself. The hallway wouldn't forget what happened, but the fallout, that came later. And it didn't go the way anyone expected. The school day didn't stop just because someone finally put Brent Halbrook on the floor. Bells still rang, teachers still handed out worksheets, but the energy in the halls had shifted. By fourth period, everybody knew. Not in a dramatic movie scene kind of way, but through whispers in math class, side eyes at the water fountain, texts under desks. "You heard what Jaslyn did?" Dropped him, like that. She didn't even yell. She used some MMA move or something. Dude looked like a turtle flipped on his shell. Even people who hadn't been there were telling the story like they had front row seats. And Jaslyn? She didn't say a word. She sat in her history class like nothing happened. Elbow on the desk, cheek resting in her palm, half listening, half daydreaming, waiting for the next wave to come. And it always came. She wasn't scared, just bracing. Meanwhile, Brent was hiding out in the nurse's office claiming his back hurt, though he walked in just fine. His pride was limping worse than anything else. The assistant principal, Ms. Franklin, called Jaslyn to the office during fifth period. Her voice crackled over the intercom, sharp and official. Jaslyn didn't flinch. She stood, slid her books into her backpack, and left the classroom with the same calm walk she always had. The front office smelled like printer ink and disappointment. Ms. Franklin sat behind her desk, arms folded, lips pursed. She looked Jaslyn over like she was trying to figure her out from the outside in. "Jaslyn Rowe, have a seat." Jaslyn sat. "I've already spoken with Brent and a couple of students who witnessed the altercation." Jaslyn didn't blink. "Now, I want to hear it from you. What happened?" There was a pause, not silence, because Ms. Franklin's pen tapped against the desk like a ticking clock, but enough for Jaslyn to measure her words. "He put his hands on me," she said. "I warned him not to. He did it again." "And you felt the only option was to physically restrain him?" "He left me no choice." Ms. Franklin tilted her head. "You know this could have gone a lot worse. You could have hurt him seriously. You're lucky he didn't hit his head." "He's lucky I didn't hit anything." The silence thickened. Ms. Franklin sighed, her voice softening. "Look, I'm not saying you were wrong to stand up for yourself, but there are better ways to handle things. You could have come to a teacher, a counselor." Jaslyn looked her dead in the eye. "Would they have believed me before or after he grabbed me?" Ms. Franklin didn't answer. Instead, she leaned back in her chair. "I'm putting this down as a disciplinary warning, no suspension. But if there's another incident, no matter who starts it, there won't be," Jaslyn said, and she meant it. As she walked out of the office, she caught sight of Mira by the lockers near the office window. Mira gave a little wave, half awkward, half proud. Jaslyn nodded back. Just barely. By the end of the day, Brent had vanished. Someone said his brother picked him up early. Another rumor claimed he was crying in the bathroom. Jaslyn didn't care. But later, in the locker room before PE, two girls she didn't even know passed her on the way out and gave her a thumbs up. "You're a legend now," one of them muttered. Jaslyn gave a small smirk. It was the first one all week. But behind it was still that tightness. Because being a legend for defending yourself wasn't a win. It was just survival. And the real story, about why she knew how to do what she did, was something nobody had even asked about yet. But it was coming. The next morning, the hallways felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just watchful. Jaslyn stepped into school the same way she had every other day, head down, earbuds in, not playing anything. But now, something followed her that hadn't before. Attention. Some students gave her a nod. A few tried to catch her eye with curious smiles. Others whispered the second she passed them. One kid leaned over to another near the stairwell and said, "Yo, that's her. That's the girl who flipped Brent like a pancake." Jaslyn kept walking. Her steps never changed. At her locker, she entered her combo smoothly, like muscle memory, but behind her, voices hovered too long. She turned and saw Mira again, this time with another girl, tall and lanky with a sketchbook tucked under her arm. "Hey," Mira said, stepping up. "You good?" Jaslyn shrugged. "Fine." "I heard Brent might not come back for the rest of the week. Not me my business." The other girl finally spoke. "I'm Tori. That was wild what you did. Like, you train or something?" Jaslyn glanced sideways. "Yeah, since I was 10. Mira's eyes widened. "Seriously?" Jaslyn nodded. "Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My uncle runs a school back in Toledo. That's where I lived before here." "Dang," Tori muttered. "No wonder he didn't stand a chance." But Jaslyn didn't smile. Her voice dropped just a little. "It wasn't about beating him. I just needed him to stop." That made both girls go quiet. They didn't walk away, though. Mira stayed beside her as they walked toward class. It wasn't a full friendship yet, more like an understanding, a truce with the idea of being alone. Meanwhile, in the admin office, the situation was stirring up other kinds of noise. Parents had started calling. Some wanted Brent punished more harshly. Others were furious their kids had seen violence at school. Ms. Franklin had a meeting with the principal that afternoon. She rubbed her temples while reading another email from a parent. "She didn't even hurt him," she said, exasperated. "She defended herself." Principal Gomez sighed. "I get it. But this school's got optics to manage. We don't want to send the wrong message." "What's the wrong message? That kids shouldn't be touched without consent?" Gomez didn't respond. He just looked out the window. At home that night, Jaslyn sat at the kitchen table while her mom stood over the stove, stirring a pot of rice. Her mom, Trina Rowe, was a surgical tech who worked 12-hour shifts and didn't believe in sugarcoating anything. "You all right?" she asked without looking up. Jaslyn nodded. "Yeah. I heard from the school. You got a warning?" Jaslyn nodded again. Trina turned off the burner. "Want to talk about it?" Jaslyn shrugged. "There's not much to say. He was messing with me. He pulled my braid. I put him on the ground." Trina leaned on the counter. "You sure he's not going to come back and try something worse?" "He won't." "You sure?" Jaslyn looked her mother in the eye. "He was scared, Mom." Trina didn't smile, but something in her shoulders softened. "I didn't want to use it," Jaslyn added, "but I wasn't going to let him get comfortable either." Trina walked over and sat across from her. "You know what I always told you. Your body belongs to you. You protect it, and you speak up when someone crosses the line. I don't care what a school handbook says." Jaslyn looked down, fingers curled around her fork. "It just keeps happening. Different cities, different names, same thing. People thinking I'm some kind of target." Her mom nodded. "That's why you keep your head high. You don't get small to make other people comfortable, but you also don't lose who you are in the fight." That night, Jaslyn lay awake staring at the ceiling, the words spinning in her head. She wasn't just defending herself from Brent. She was fighting to keep herself whole in a world that didn't always make room for quiet girls with sharp minds and strong hands. But even with all that behind her, there was one piece of the puzzle no one knew yet. And it had everything to do with why she came to Millstone in the first place. Most people assumed Jaslyn moved to Bloomington because of her mom's job. That's what she told the school when she registered. And technically, it wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Millstone Academy wasn't some grand opportunity or fresh start. It was Plan B. A shift made in the aftermath of something that almost broke her. Back in Toledo, Jaslyn had been at a charter school on the east side. Smaller campus, tighter rules. She was quiet there too, but well known. People respected her, even if they didn't understand her. Then came that incident. It happened during a bus ride. Some junior thought it was funny to pull one of her braids, same as Brent. Except this guy didn't stop when she told him to. He kept tugging, laughing in her face, calling her wig girl in front of everyone. Jaslyn warned him twice. He didn't listen. So she did what she'd been trained to do, pinned him against the seat and held him there until the driver noticed. No bruises, no blood, just stunned silence. But that school didn't take it the same way Millstone did. They suspended her for 5 days, called it excessive response. Her mom fought it, even brought in Jaslyn's coach to explain that restraint doesn't equal violence. Didn't matter. When Jaslyn came back, the vibe was different. Not just from students, but teachers. People who once greeted her with warmth now avoided eye contact. The message was clear. Quiet was acceptable. Strong wasn't. Her mom started looking for other options immediately. That's how Millstone ended up on the radar. Clean campus, decent academics, fresh set of faces. But no matter how clean a school looks on paper, the people are always the same. Jaslyn didn't want to make trouble. She wanted peace. But peace didn't always come when you asked nicely. After what happened with Brent, Jaslyn noticed how carefully people approached her now, how suddenly respect showed up where silence once lived. But none of them asked how she was doing, except Mira. They started talking more, in the lunchroom, in the courtyard. Not deep talks, but enough to build something. Mira was quirky, sharp, always sketching things in the margins of her notebook. She drew Jaslyn once, sitting on the bleachers alone, and gave it to her like it was no big deal. It was the first time in a long time Jaslyn felt seen. One Friday after school, they walked to a corner store a few blocks from campus. Mira bought chips. Jaslyn grabbed a bottle of orange Gatorade. On the walk back, Mira asked the question nobody else had. "Why'd you move here?" Jaslyn took a sip before answering. "Some kid put his hands on me. I made him stop. The school said I was too aggressive." Mira kicked at a stone on the sidewalk. "People hate it when girls don't react the way they expect. Especially girls like me," Jaslyn said. Mira nodded. "Yeah, I get that." They didn't say much more after that. They didn't have to. It was the first time Jaslyn didn't feel like she had to defend her silence. Or her strength. That weekend, she dusted off her old sparring gi and rolled out the mat in the garage. Just for a few hours. Not to prepare, just to breathe. But peace has a way of attracting curiosity, and not all of it was good. Because the more respect Jaslyn earned, the more one particular person started seeing her as a threat. Monday started like any other. Same hallway, same faces, same uniforms. But Jaslyn could feel it, the shift. Brent Halbrook was back. He showed up before first bell, standing stiff near his usual corner like he was trying to reclaim his territory. But the swagger was gone. The grin had cracks in it. He didn't say a word to her when she passed. He looked, but didn't speak. Word spread quick. He'd been told to apologize. Not by the school, by his dad. The day moved slow. Everyone was waiting for something, a second round, a confrontation. Jaslyn wasn't interested in giving them a show. She was already planning her week like normal. Test on Wednesday, gym on Thursday, quiet Friday with her sketchbook and earbuds. But Brent didn't let it go that easy. He found her near the end of the day, by the courtyard benches. Jaslyn was sitting alone, notebook open, headphones around her neck. Not playing music, just breathing. He stood there for a moment like he was working up the nerve. Then, finally, "Hey." She looked up, nothing else. He scratched his neck awkwardly. I wanted to say sorry. About the other day. About all of it." Jaslyn blinked slowly. "You're not sorry. You're embarrassed." He looked down, didn't argue. "I get it," she continued. "You're used to being the biggest voice in the hallway. You pick people who won't fight back. Problem is, you picked the wrong girl this time." Brent looked like he wanted to sink into the ground. "Yeah, I figured that out." Jaslyn closed her notebook, stood up, met him eye to eye. "Look, don't talk to me like we're friends. I'm not mad. I'm not looking for revenge. But don't ever touch me again, or anyone else who doesn't want you to. You get me?" Brent nodded. "Yeah, I got you." She stepped past him, just like before, only this time he didn't follow. She walked with purpose, not just because she'd won something, but because she no longer felt small. Later that week, Ms. Franklin called her in, not for discipline, but to say something different. "I heard about the apology," she said, folding her hands. "That took maturity. From both of you." Jaslyn raised an eyebrow. "I didn't do it to be mature. I did it because people need to understand boundaries." "Well, you made an impact." Jaslyn stood. "Let's hope he remembers it." Back in the halls, people started treating her different, but not out of fear, out of respect. She wasn't just the girl who dropped Brent anymore. She was Jaslyn, the one who didn't back down, the one who didn't let silence make her small. One day, a freshman girl bumped into her by accident and apologized fast, wide-eyed, like she expected to get snapped at. Jaslyn smiled gently. "It's all right." Moments like that reminded her, strength isn't about being loud or aggressive. It's about knowing exactly who you are and refusing to let anyone shake that. In PE the following week, the coach started a self-defense unit. Jaslyn got asked to demonstrate a hold. She said yes, not to show off, but to teach, to give someone else what she wished she'd had the first time someone crossed a line. At the end of class, Mira caught up to her and said, "You're like low-key a hero now?" Jaslyn shook her head. "I'm not a hero. I'm just tired of staying quiet when people act like I'm invisible." Mira smiled. "Well, you're definitely not invisible anymore." Jaslyn looked out at the schoolyard, at the laughter, the noise, the life she was finally starting to settle into. And for the first time since she got to Millstone, she felt like she could breathe a little deeper. Like maybe this place didn't have to be temporary. Because sometimes respect isn't handed to you. Sometimes you build it with your silence, your voice, your stance. If you ever feel like people are treating you like you don't matter, don't let them define you. Speak up, stand strong. And if no one has your back yet, be your own backup until someone sees the light in you. You're worth being heard.